Hi everyone and welcome to this episode of Line of Sight. I'm Scott West, Principal Product Marketing Manager here at BitSight, and today we're going to get into some of the technical vision behind different BitSight products and capabilities. Today we're going to be talking about the BitSight Ratings Tree, and I'm very, very happy to have with me today Principal Data Scientist John Berger and Senior Customer Success Manager Nick Bird. Welcome, gentlemen. So John, let's start by telling our audience about the BitSight Ratings Tree. What is it and why is it useful for our customers?
So I think the most obvious example of the ratings tree would be a parent company and its subsidiaries, and you want to see, customers want to see the ratings for each of those, but they're obviously related. So the BitSight rating is a measure of security performance, and the performance of child companies reflects on the parent. And so we try to take all of that into account and capture those relationships. And anything good or bad we see on the children companies will also reflect on the rating of the parent. There are other ways that we use the ratings tree to sort of carve up the space, but that's kind of the most stereotypical example.
And then from a usability perspective, most of my customers enjoy it just because it's great to understand the security posture of the parent organization, but I think what helps them is being able to contextualize just exactly how the subsidiary or child parents contribute to the overall security posture of the organization.
So it's interrelated, the parents and the child relationships, they're interrelated with each other?
John, you'll probably be better at answering this, but it's not bilateral, it's unilateral. So the children organizations will actually impact the parent organization, but not necessarily the reverse.
So John, the BitSight Ratings Tree is unique in the way that we've implemented it and the way that our customers use it. But I know there's also an interesting story behind the ratings tree and how it came to be. So tell us about that background. Like, where did the whole concept of the BitSight Ratings Tree come from?
So almost from the beginning, we realized we wanted to represent these relationships, and we wanted to have, observations on child companies flow up and affect the parent rating. And so that's been in the product almost from the beginning. And then at some point, customers kind of wanted to see that in a more readily available form. And so at one of the yearly hackathons that we do, someone put together a visualization of that, an actual tree, and that everyone very quickly realized that provided a lot of value, and it was pretty quickly kind of formalized and bulletproofed and put out into the product.
So let's talk about the process that BitSight uses to map entities in the ratings tree, and speak about how those entities actually get represented in the tree, and if you could also explain to our audience what we mean by an entity.
So we use the term entity because the most obvious way you might think about a rating is that we're rating companies, but there are other kinds of, and a company is from our perspective, is a collection of assets, a collection of IP addresses and domains, but there are other ways that we might want to carve those up, or that customers might want us to carve those up, that don't necessarily correspond to a legal company out, registered in the world. So we use entity as a more general topic, a more general way to describe that. And the way we map entities, we have a great deal of automation that kind of goes out and scours a lot of different data sources, and in order to kind of discover a company, initially, a company's internet footprint, and that's going to form the foundation of their rating. But then we also actually have humans in the loop for much of that, just to kind of confirm things, because the automation isn't perfect. We're always striving to make it better, but it's useful to have humans in the loop. And Nick, you might talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the technical research team that's responsible for those mappings actually sits pretty adjacent to the customer success organization. And to be honest, they really are quite an army. I think there's about 70 or 80 people on it who actually spend the time to go in, curate the data, and ensure that all of the assets are accurately and up to date as far as they are reflected for the parent and the subsidiary organizations.
And that's a capability that is very unique in the security ratings industry, having the combination of automation and human curation together.
Yeah. we hear that a lot when we talk to our customers who use both us and any of our competitors.
So Nick, you work with a lot of our customers on a daily basis. Tell us how our customers use the BitSight Ratings Tree and the flexibility that's built into it to really demonstrate an accurate representation of their cybersecurity posture. And if you have any examples that you can share, that would be great.
Yeah, so I actually work with a global consulting firm, and they have a pretty unique use case that I find really, really helpful for how their organization is built out. They actually have BISOs, so Business Information Security Officers, who sit in different regions around the world. So they've actually used our self-publishing option to group a lot of the different member firms that they have into areas. So for example, they have their Mexico branch, they have their US branch, they have their Canada branch. What they'll do is actually bucket them into one rating that BISO is going to be responsible for. So they can see the performance of each BISO in each region, and then if they wanted to get any granular information, they have that capability as well.
John, he mentioned self-publishing. What does that mean?
So one of the virtues of this ratings tree is sort of, Nick gave an example where the customer can sort of slice things up in a way that they find useful, both for managing their assets, but also for presenting that to other customers that might want to subscribe to those ratings. So they can designate a particular subsidiary or a particular view of things that they think best represents their security performance. Perhaps they'll take their guest Wi-Fi, which is kind of a bit of a wild west for most companies. They can't completely control what goes on there. They'll separate that out. It will still affect the ultimate parent's rating. We don't let them sort of hide things. But they can take everything except that guest Wi-Fi and designate that and say, we think this is the best representation of our security performance. And then other customers can choose to say, okay, that makes sense. I'll subscribe to that version of the rating. Or they can say, no, I don't buy that. I'm going to stick with the actual parent. And so the ratings tree gives customers the flexibility to sort of carve things up, both to manage things from their own perspective, but also to present things to other customers in a very flexible way.
All right, so the BitSight Ratings Tree is, from what I'm hearing, really well suited for an organization that wants to define its own hierarchical structure and represent that and represent the rating according to that. But what about third parties? How would third parties, if you're working in a third party risk management program, how would those companies utilize the ratings tree to benefit their process?
The way that all of my third-party customers use it is, I think you get to the point where companies get so large that you're likely not doing business with every single subsidiary that exists. So what the ratings tree allows them to do is go in, understand which branch or which subsidiary that their relationship is with the business, and subscribe to that and omit all of the other information that's coming from the rest of the subsidiaries in the organization.
So it allows them to get to the specific entity that really matters.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. All right, well, John and Nick, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate the additional insights on the BitSight Ratings Tree and how our customers can benefit from it. So thank you for joining us for this episode where we talked about the BitSight Ratings Tree. I'm Scott West, and we'll see you next time on Line of Sight.